Welcome to Wizard Team, a Black magical podcast for Black magical stories.
Hi everyone, it's Bayana, Robyn, and Porshèa embarking on a journey through the many fantasy stories written by and about Black people. Today, we're reading chapters 55 through 57 of Bloodmarked by Tracy Deonn.
Before we get into all that, let's talk about what happened previously on Wizard Team. So, Bree... I feel this way because we know the reason, and I've been feeling this way this whole book, but Bree tried to practice her Aether magic, meaning her magic through Arthur, who's withholding his magic because he is the worst. Outside of volition, with surprise, surprise, little progress, because again, Arthur is being withholding. Alice throws Bree a birthday party, like an impromptu birthday party, because her mom, in her stepping out, reminded her, like, oh, it's her birthday soon. She gets cupcakes, and then Cell decides he's going to take Bree for a special gift, which is a time with the fireflies. They're there, they get intimate, that intimacy equals a kiss, but then also they are bickerers, so that doesn't last very long. And it doesn't help that as they're on their way back to Volition, they are cut short by the Mage Guard, who have now found Bree, and Erebus is there to exchange her for Dr. Hartwood, who's in their custody. Bree immediately tries to do whatever she can to get Dr. Hartwood away from the Order, which means that she wants to summon Arthur for help. But in order for him to help her, he decides that she has to allow him full access to her body, which means she is not going to be able to control her body once he's in control of it. With their powers combined, but really it's just Arthur, they tear through the Mage Guard with some help from Cell and Alice. The help is not so helpful from Cell, even more helpful from Alice, but not going well, which leads to Bree Arthur badly injuring Alice. Looks like a fatality. The girl doesn't look good. And when Bree tries to take her body back, Arthur is like, oh, hi. No, stuck in place for you. So that's where Bree is. And when Cell realizes that Arthur has done what he's done, Arthur knocks him out. So Bree is stranded in her own body with no one to help her. And Arthur, in the meantime, is demanding to be taken to the Regents, but by the Mage Guard that are currently around that he just thrashed. But before he can get anywhere with that demand, he's interrupted by his old buddy, the Demon King.
So much.
It's
so much. And it doesn't need to be that much. Like, they could have, like, Tracy, you could have not. I mean, I'm not.
Yeah, but she did. She did have to do it.
I'm trying to rewrite it, but like, dang.
Right? Like, I'm very appreciative that you wrote the book. The book is amazing. The book is fantastic, but also
our poor nerves.
My poor nerves. So, chapter 55. Bree wakes up submerged in like the stream that is representative of Arthur's bloodline. And as she like tries to push up to like get out of the stream, she's met by an invisible barrier. So she's like pushing on it and she cannot get out of the stream. And then she's worried, like, if I drown in this, like, I'm taking in water and whatever, if I drown and die here, what happens? Do I die? Whatever.
The tree falls into force, but if it's my soul in my body.
Right. And so then she decides to stop struggling, and instead of what she expects is for her to hit the bottom of the riverbed, she lands on the floor of the Arthur's palace.
I was just wait. I read this note and I'm just the fact that we know that Bree is a young black woman. For her to like figuratively, but also literally be sent to the sunken place, and then when she tries to leave it, hit a glass ceiling. Like, really, Tracy? Did we really need this embodiment of the strife of being black and a woman
Apparently.
from Arthur?
Apparently, Tracy was like pulling no punches. It's
No.
just, she said, pain, pain for everyone. So she ends up on the in the like the palace or the round table room, I guess. And there are the 12 knights surrounding her, and she looks down at herself though, and she's like, "Oh wait, I don't see." Like she sees her hands, but she doesn't see like Arthur's hands surrounding them like she has in previous blood walks. And then she looks, and she's wearing her clothes. She looks like her, and she's like, "What is happening here?" And then she goes to talk to Lancelot, and no one sees her. She's basically invisible. She's like kind of a ghost. And so she realizes that this is not a memory. She's not blood walking. This is a dream. And so it is completely different than like when she has herself chosen to go back into Arthur's memories. And also realizes that this is where Arthur is when she doesn't call him. So even when he's awakened by the other scions of Arthur that are not mediums and don't have Bree's gifts, like he's in this dream kind of place. But once she recognizes it's a dream, and I think she like either thinks those words,
I think she says them out loud
explicitly. I think she says them out loud. Yeah. The scene starts to like disintegrate, and there's like lightning and thunder, and then everything is crumbling around her, but the knights are not reacting to like everything crumbling. And so she runs into another room to get away because she can be hurt. I don't think the knights in the parts of Arthur's dream, and Arthur has walked in. I think Merlin walked in as well, but Arthur definitely walked in at this point and is like interacting with his knights, but also is not interacting with Bree, and is not interacting with the fact that there's like bricks and like walls falling down and lightning strikes. So she ends up running into a new room and finds herself in yet another dream. So in this dream, Arthur is alone in this room, and Morgane comes in and wants him to go with her for a surprise. And so they're like kind of talking back and forth, and then Bree is like trying to get Arthur's attention, and once again calls out that this is not real, and the room kind of starts to crumble, and then she quiets down, doesn't say it again, like she doesn't repeat it, and things start to kind of restore themselves. And so I pulled out this quote: "The only way to keep things peaceful here is to behave as though this place is real, believe that it's real, ignore that there is any other world than this one made of magic and consciousness. If I acknowledge the dream is a dream, then it becomes a nightmare." So she's kind of starting to really figure out like what this place is and how it works. And so she decides that she's gonna follow Arthur and Morgane.
She tries to like, or I guess the other thing she like thinks about is like, you know, is this the way that it is for Arthur?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it makes it more like, it's less of just like this dreamscape where, you know, it's like what I want to live in, and more of a prison. And so it made me think more about, because I think she's like, oh, did Merlin make it this way on purpose, or did Arthur like slowly, like, did it just slowly become this way for Arthur? And I think it's interesting if Merlin did it, and like what the intention was in the beginning versus like did Merlin go like, oh nah, y'all, you can't be here, like after already the spell of eternity? Like, did he then have a change of heart, or was it like something that just kind of accidentally became this way? Like, what? Yeah.
I'm just mad that Bree's having empathy for Arthur and his plight when Arthur is like, I get it because Bree is who she is, and I'm like, I don't have anything against, you know, her being who she is. I'm just like, the injustice of like, not only is she stuck in a place where this guy has been like in his own mind palace and dream palace like for this long, and like she's like, oh man, like he must have it rough that he can't even like think outside of it without there being consequences. But it's like an insult to injury. Like it's not only that she's there and she's stuck in that landscape, it's like she also has to deal with his nightmares as she tries to leave. Like, that's a mess. And so it's just like, it's so limiting for, I get it. Like, I get like having empathy for someone's plight, especially when they're being held prisoner in something, but like the irony of her being held prisoner in her own body and Arthur being held prisoner in his own dreamscape, and how like his morals are probably like they're already highly questionable, and like the fact that he's been in this place this whole time and at Merlin's like power set, and he has just like accepted this as like acceptable behavior is to like trap somebody within their own mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was thinking about it more as like, because we've been saying like Merlin hasn't gotten enough smoke. And so I was kind of thinking about this as, and this is like something we do not know. So it's just a thought. It's not, I wouldn't even say it's even like kind of hinted at. It's just more of like, this is where my brain is wishing for something to be this way. But Merlin kind of agreeing with Arthur that the spell of eternity and the ability to like make sure that these powers are passed down is important, but knowing who Arthur is and knowing that if he had the chance to kind of inhabit or leave this space, he would wreak havoc, or he would try to take advantage of the magic. Design the spell this way to like, yeah, kind of keep him prisoner. Like knowing if I create a spell like this, then it has the opportunity for them to take advantage and like possess their descendants.
Mm-hmm.
And Arthur is the kind of person and has the ego where he would definitely try to do that,
right,
and try to live forever through that. So as a safeguard, like the only way this spell works is to do it this way. But as a safeguard, he is kind of has like his consciousness needs to be trapped in here. Thinking about it from that perspective is kind of lets my brain go on this fancy of not that Merlin is a good person, but that Merlin is not blindly following Arthur without being cognizant of his faults and the ways in which he would try to find loopholes, and knowing that he should not have that power.
Yeah, I wonder too, because like in the brief conversation Arthur has with Morgaine, which it's obviously like a dream, you know what I mean? But it does kind of shed some light on like their dynamic, and then but also their dynamic with Merlin, because whatever secret like she's gonna show him, there's this whole thing about like, oh, does Merlin know? And like, oh, maybe he doesn't, and there's like some mischief around that. So then it makes me also wonder if Merlin and Arthur's relationship is closer to like Sel and Nick in a way, or if like, you know what I mean? Like did Merlin, I know like the Merlins have to owe themselves to the order, but like, you know, they have the King's Mage and they're directly tied. So I wonder if Merlin and Arthur were directly like oathed in that same way. And if that also kind of like, I don't know. I just have so many questions about Merlin and like what their dynamic is and how that kind of also helped to inform all of this.
Right. Because I don't think that thought process exonerates Merlin from the choices that he made, but it does kind of shed a little bit more. I don't know, it just makes me feel a little bit better that he's not blinded in the way that you think of like Lancelot being blinded and like blindly following Arthur, even if he disagrees with him, just like kind of, well, he's the king, so he does know best, and maybe I'm just not. I just don't understand I'm too small brained, or I'm not gifted enough to understand why this divine king wants to do things this way, but it has to be right because he has made this choice. And if Merlin is not blind to that fact, it makes me feel a little.
I don't think it makes me feel
hopeful seems like the wrong way, but like it makes me feel like there might be a victory in sight. Like they might be able to take advantage of the fact that like Merlin tried to curtail Arthur to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hopeful, optimistic.
And maybe it was
not
a
about
gradual
Merlin, but
thing,
about,
right?
like
Like he was probably, he could have been that he was like down with what Arthur was doing, and at a certain point was like, maybe not. But yeah.
I think it depends on how far-seeing Merlin's powers actually are. Like, is he a seer? Is he like Nostradamus and he's able to see, or Raven Baxter, is he able to see into the future and then like change things up according to like what he knows is going to happen in the future? Because if you're saying that he like, I just don't know that they have the foresight to expect for someone to be a medium and that have like know what the effects of someone being a medium with the ability to be part of the order and call a knight or Arthur. I don't know that you can plan for that unless you actually know that that is going to happen. Like you've seen it.
Right. And I mean, I think that's my point, is that like, I don't think that he foresaw that someone would be a medium. I think he foresaw that there would be a lot of scions like there were before where Arthur cannot possess them. And so Bree being a medium.
How would he know that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how would he? But they've never. When Merlin cast the spell, he cast the spell for them to come back together. He doesn't. They have never had that happen. It's not happened before. He's just cast the spell to make it happen.
What I'm saying is, I was wondering if the spell, without this like restriction, would kind of leave open the possibility for him to possess someone who's not a medium. And so he made this failsafe of like, Arthur has to know that this is or has to be like locked into this being a dream, because it's kind of a prison in that way. And then the unseen part is Bree. So like, as designed, Arthur cannot like, he doesn't have that much influence on the scions because of this like dream capacity thing that like Merlin designed. But what Merlin did not foresee was someone like Bree, which allows him to then like take over. It's it again, like I said, like none of this is in the text, and none of it can be proven either way, or unless like Tracy decides to like explore this in Oathbound. But it's just something that kind of made me think of a possibility of Merlin being more aware of like Arthur's faults, and then trying to like safeguard the future generations from Arthur in that way.
For me, I wrote this down as a patriarchy. I feel like the way that the patriarchy works, and this is like totally within like Merlin's, especially like medieval times, is like ongoing philosophy of like making up rules that are restrictive because they have the ability to make restrictive, like to restrict others' movements, even if those restrictions are um, like are on themselves. But knowing that those restrictions are no more are way less restrictive than the oppression that they're actually um, like the folks that are directly like or actually affected by the rules that they set. They're oppressed, whereas they are going through restrictions, and it's like, well, at least like it's not like I'm having a good time. I have restrictions, like sure, but you're oppressing other people. There's not an equal footing there. Your restriction is
Yeah,
not equal, like same like level of um issue as my oppression.
for
So
sure.
he was designed with Arthur in mind. Then here comes Bree, and it's like, ugh.
I mean, these are questions that I think we just have to have and think through and hope. I don't even know hope, but like
maybe get answers, maybe don't.
Yeah, which is like
Yeah.
the fun part of books like this. But also, just give me the freaking answer, So Bree is trying to get Arthur's attention, and while Arthur's talking to Morgane, and she then says again, like, this is not real, and things start to kind of crumble. But she decides to stop, and when she stops, when she stops acknowledging that this was a dream, things kind of settle back down, and so she thinks, well, if I want to stay alive, I have no choice but to ignore that this is a dream state and just kind of be okay with being a ghost. And that's where chapter 55 ends. But I also would like to say, because this is spoiler heavy, like that does not last but like a hot second. And I find it very indicative of who Bree is as a person, that she makes these proclamations of like, well, this is what I have to do to survive, or this is what I have to do to like win. And then 2 seconds later, it's like, I'm going to do the opposite.
Well,
and I just love that consistency.
So we're back in the real
That's when
world,
I dropped the song that came to mind with Bree talking about her being a shadow, which is the Ashley Simpson song, "Living in the shadow of someone else's dream." And literally, that's
literally what's happening. Oh my God.
I am cackling at this because I was just at a restaurant and they were blasting Pieces of Me, and I said, in 2024.
And look at being relevant.
But also, that whole album was my jam, so I wasn't mad at it. I was not mad at it, but I was definitely like
surprised.
Yeah.
Did I go back in time?
Yeah. So to have 2
references
to Ashley Simpson in 2 days.
Synchronicity.
Are we thinking that there is are we coming back? You know what I mean? Is she coming back? Run it back, baby. JC just dropped an album on Friday. Why not? Why not?
Okay, so so we're back in the regular world, which unfortunately means we are back with Arthur. So real quick, so the Shadow King is here. And he, just the description is black smoke in the shape of a man filling the air with the scent of brimstone. The air nearest his form is leached of light. Wings made of ink flare out from his spine, lifting up in claw-tipped curves overhead. His eyes are the same obsidian with pulsing red coals in the center. He's definitely not dead.
I was thinking about this in terms of like, I had to read it a couple of times to know, like, it's not obvious that the Shadow King is Erebus here.
No, because like, Arthur does not know at all.
Arthur does not make the connection. And so I was thinking that it's kind of like Doctor Strange. They also did this in Endgame, where they like push you out of the body and then your spirit's just like floating around, type of thing. So astral projection. Thank you. So Erebus is still knocked the fuck out. And then the Shadow King took this time to be like, well, let me just leave this corpse here, or this body
that,
thing
or
here.
Because I don't think they like inhabit or take someone's body. I think they kill them and then they like take their image. Like in my head, I thought it was more of like a shape shifting thing, right? But because it's everything. But what I'm saying is that because everything is so dark and there's so many, like, he's not looking for. Erebus got yeeted. Again, this is like the second or third time he got yeeted, but he got yeeted away. So it's not like Arthur has eyes on him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I wasn't even thinking that he was looking for Erebus. Like, Erebus is not a factor in Arthur's, like, what Arthur's trying to do right now. But I was just thinking that, like, somewhere he is like, okay, let me just step out and astral project my actual true form to Arthur and let it be known. Because, and I also don't know if this is true or not, but it feels like, I don't know if anyone else notices the Shadow King, or if maybe he only makes himself visible to Arthur.
Yeah, well, I think that,
I don't know.
It's definitely not completely clear. Because like all the Merlins are knocked out, but William is out there with trying to like get Alice and Cell together, and the Root Crafters are there, but they're behind the thing, so it's not clear if they're like in this.
I thought that one Merlin,
like, if time stops, like, you know what I mean? Like if the way that this is happening, like there's some way that like they're kind of
frozen.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I thought that one Merlin was awake because he was like, take me to your whatever, and she, Olsen.
Oh, yeah.
So that was why I was like, does Olsen see this, or, you know?
Right. But no one really behaves as if they saw.
They see it, yeah.
See it, so maybe it's some kind of like time freeze or something.
Maybe it's all happening in Arthur's mind.
That too. Like, something about it just feels like it's not, like it's only an experience that Arthur or even Bree, like if Bree was there, like would have, like, so Arthur can feel the Shadow King's gaze, but he can't handle it because he thinks he's the shit, but he's not. So he's like, in his hand, he's like, I don't know how Brianna stands this. I'm like, yeah, because you're weak. But it does remind him that about Bree's root, and then just like a colonizing piece of trash, he tries to access it himself, but he can't. So
I wish that Bree, not for her to have the horror of having to witness her own body not reacting for her, but I wish Bree was able to hear him talk about the way her powers, whether he thinks about them, because he's like, this is a skill set that her most powerful skill set. It's like, would that Bree knew that? Would that Bree knew that you need to stop trying to call on Arthur and his stupid constructs because your root is way more powerful than whatever he can help you do.
I mean, spoiler alert, she gets there a little too late, and then the thing that she decides to do with that knowledge is the reason we have another book to explore.
That's gonna be really
also
fun to talk about next week.
My fucking
God.
So many thoughts.
Next week's conversation.
I finished the book when I was reading for this episode. I just kept going, and then I'll just read it again next week. And I was just like, still, like, my brain was like, is that really what she did? Like, this is my third time reading this book, and I'm like, how did we, girl.
So Arthur again, he doesn't know that like this is Erebus, and he assumes that the Shadow King used shadows to get there because that's generally how he travels, is through shadow, which is good to know. and to keep get to note. And then they kind of have this conversation about arrogance where Arthur accuses the Shadow King of being arrogant. Like, you know, it was your arrogance that led to your downfall back in the day. Now your court is fractured and like I'm on top, whatever. And the Shadow King is kind of like, are you? Like, is this what on top is? Like, is this what, like, and so he's kind of just like makes it clear that he's been watching the order, knows that they're fractured. And Arthur is like, I don't like this. And it's like, yeah, who cares? Like, it's kind of, it's so hard because, like, obviously the Shadow King is like bad, and we have like benched Erebus a number of times. But in this kind of moment, I'm just like, I do not care about Arthur and his
it is
what he wants.
It is definitely one of those. I can they both lose?
Yeah, but like if
both,
I had to choose right in this moment, I'd probably choose the Shadow King. Hate to say it. So Arthur like starts towards him to, you know, to fight, but kind of notices that the Shadow King is keeping his distance. And then when he actually tries to like fight him for real, he's realizing the Shadow King is only defending himself. And so Arthur is kind of like, why is that? And the Shadow King says, let us say that this girl is an investment that I would like to maintain. Which, you know, when you speak like that, now I'm no longer rooting for you. Leave Bria out of this, honestly. Like, leave her alone. Let her live her life. But that's when we find out, and it's confirmed that he's the one who bloodmarked her.
He's the hunter.
Which then makes it so he's the hunter. Yeah. Which is awkward. And the Great Devourer, because I think that connection was made already, that the Great Devourer and the hunter are the same.
That's the same as what is the like odds that the more monikers you have, the worse you are as an entity? If the Shadow King wasn't bad enough, you're also the hunter. You are AKA the Great Devourer, AKA, you know what I mean? Like, how many aliases
must you
at what
have?
point do the number of aliases just prove that you are a shit person?
I mean, I don't know if you want to make that correlation, because doesn't Loki have a bunch of different monikers that he goes by?
I mean, he's
not a great person. He's not the best.
I love him, but he's not. It doesn't disprove the point. I just finished reading the Extraordinary Adventures of Arsène Lupin, who is like the Sherlock Holmes of criminals, basically, and he's got a bunch of like names and monikers and shit. He doesn't kill people. He's got couth and decorum,
like Batman,
and like style and grace.
Wait, no, Superman.
But he will rob the fuck out of you, take all your shit, and then write a story and post and like publish it in a newspaper, like Arsène Lupin. Here's what he did. Yay. And so yeah, I'm just wondering, like, what is the correlation there?
Yeah. I mean,
and how many other names does this man go by that we don't know yet?
I mean, he's been around for a long time, so I could imagine
a long time.
I could imagine there are a lot. So Arthur, of course, demands to know why he's bloodmarked Bree, and the Shadow King, same thing, is like, you really he's just like, ha ha ha, you think I would tell you? He's like, I'm not one of your liege lords. Be so serious. I do what I want. And then he disappears. So then there's cars approaching. So like he disappears and the light kind of returns, which again makes me think that he kind of like paused time in some kind of way.
Yeah.
Because then there's like he disappears and then now there's cars approaching and someone yanks Bree's arms back and it's an injured Erebus. And again, I do not like him, but I kind of have to stand the transition. The way that he like did that was kind of like,
It was smooth.
It was smooth.
It also feels like an Easter egg for like you're, you know, the next read around. Like, dang, he really was sitting there. Like, yep, it's me.
Mm-hmm.
You figured
Right,
it out
like he
yet?
was there the whole
Right
time.
here. Mm-hmm.
But I think what also helps in this situation is he, like, Erebus, like, he just knows how to play his role. And
He's
in
very
this
practiced at it.
situation, like, Kestra is about to show up, and he's no longer the highest ranking member of the order, and so just the way that he interacts in the situation, before he was in charge, now he's not really in charge, and like being able to see how he kind of defers to her. One, I think there are hints, and like we'll go through it or whatever, that there are hints that he is not, you know what I mean, that he's not necessarily on the same page with her, but then he also is not talking very much, so it makes it so you're not really thinking of them in the same way, I guess. It kind of throws the scent off, I guess, is more the...
Silence is a choice. Like, speaking is a choice, but so is silence. So that's also a thing. Like, what is he keeping to himself? He was not silenced. He is silenced.
Right.
Thank you, Oprah. Appreciate it.
So there are more mage guard exit the cars, including Lark, and then Erebus. So Lark like says, you know, greets Bree, and then Arthur is like, Lark and Douglas, and Lark is understandably confused and a little concerned.
Let me just say, can I just say, I mean, I know Arthur wants, like, here's the thing. Arthur wants he is Lady Olenna in this situation. He wants everyone to know that it's him. He does not, he's not trying to do subterfuge. He doesn't want everyone to be like, no one knows, it's really me.
And he thinks that is going to mean something.
Yes. He thinks it's remarkable. However, you really gotta be on some straight BS that someone who is just acquainted with Bree, like Larkin has just met Bree this book. Like it's not William, this isn't Sel, this isn't Alice or her father. This is Larkin. Larkin is just like, from the way that like he's basically holding Bree's body, from the way that he reacts to Larkin. Larkin is like, I've only known this girl for 2 hours. What is wrong? What's going on?
It's clearly this is clearly not the same girl. Yeah, and it's just this whole kind of chapter. I mean, I think both chapters, but I feel like especially this one. It was one of those things reading it, especially the first time, where it was like really, while it was infuriating to be like watching Arthur in Bree's body and like how like this kind of entitlement that he has over it, at the same time it was interesting and kind of like vindicating to watch him actually have to deal with what that means for real. Like he's coming into it thinking like his name is all that matters, and that like the only reason that folks weren't really messing with Bree was, yes, like he kind of acknowledged like, yeah, like he, you know, he has his own racist beliefs and actions as exhibited by what he's doing right now, but I think he thought that him being himself would change that,
supersede the visual of who Bree is.
Yeah, but it's also the fact that like he's thinking that like the way that his power works, there's no way they can deny him his power. Like it's not even like, yes, it's him, it's who he is, but it's also like, I'm him. I'm the king that y'all been waiting for. I'm the king that was promised. Like,
right. And he also thinks
my descendant, but now I'm her. Now I'm it. I'm
right.
Here.
And he, instead of like, and he also doesn't realize that like instead of showcasing his own strength, he's only showing Bree's weakness. And despite all that he's seen of this place, like, and of this world and how things work, he doesn't really understand the politics. He doesn't really understand like how things work now, and assumes that his like 6th century sensibilities will supersede all of that.
It shows how much of an old man he is. Like,
because it's like, bro, this
arrogance.
2020. Like, please be so serious. We're in the 21st century. None of that is the same.
Oh,
we're not even in Britain.
And it's funny too, because it's like they don't bow down to the Legendborn, and technically the Legendborn are the ones who are supposed to be the power holders.
Mm-hmm.
So you really thought because you're the king? They don't.
That was my
all of them questionably. Like if you're holding them to a standard, they already treat your whole round table questionably. So
Right.
you thought you coming through was gonna be the difference maker?
And he's like, right. He's like, I'm about to go get my tape. Like, well, we should keep going. But he's in his head.
Yeah.
He's just like, yeah, I'm about to go meet up with my
Go
squad, and
squad
then we're
up.
good.
Yeah.
It's like, and now we're and also I think in his head he's like, yeah, I'm gonna meet up with my squad. We're gonna defeat the Shadow King again. And it's just like simple, even though this entire book, like all of the events since he's been awakened, has proven that none of this is simple.
And none of it
I think
is
that was
Caucasity.
my biggest thing of the caucasity of it too, is like you either weren't paying attention or your ego is so huge. And I think it's a little bit of both, mostly ego, that you thought your voice was going to make all of the things that Bree has been up against disappear. Because you should know by now that the biggest fight that Bree is up against, like, yes, a lot of it is informed by like who she is and what she looks like, but even if Nick was the sign of Arthur, the regents wanted to be in control. And like they want Arthur and all of that to be the Legendborn are figureheads now. They're just this cute story that we tell and like help let them think that they have power in this, but like no, we took power and we're not giving it up. No matter how many Camlins come, we're not giving up the power. That was the actual that was one of the many actual battles that Bree was facing. And he just thought, oh, but I'm here now. Like you said, like, oh, but I'm here now, so that's not a thing. And it's like, no, because if we went back to the 6th century and you had a regency and it was led by Aldridge and Sestra, like the fight would be the same. Ooh.
So Erebus explains that Arthur is possessing Bree, and then Sestra turns up as well, and the Root Crafters make their appearance. They're trying to take Bree away. The Root Crafters like leave the barrier, and they're like, all right, we're getting Bree back. Like, you need to give her to us. Meanwhile, just as a like aside, like William again is with Sel and Alice, is trying to like revive them. So the Root Crafters kind of like form
following
a line.
Instructions.
Yes, but also the Root Crafters form a line in front of William, Sel, and Alice, so they're protecting them as well. And Patricia is like, give Bree to us, we'll exorcise the spirit. Which I'm like, I want to see a Rootcraft exorcism. Like, what the heck?
I want
Or
to see an exorcism.
Me too.
I want to see an exorcism of Arthur. I
want to see him booted out. I want to see Arthur struggle with the fact that nobody wants him here. Like, I need
part of me though, when she said that, I said, y'all could have been done this.
Well, so that was the other thing, is like, as I'm watching this, I'm like, see, this is why Bree needs to stop trying to act like a king and start being in community. Like, she's trying, she's struggling. I'm not even really blaming her, because I think that she is trying to navigate how to do this. She doesn't really know how to do it. She's trying to figure out the difference.
Didn't do it either. So they're not, that's like a rooted kind of like feeling that they have. It's like, we should do this in community with others. I get it. However.
And I think that she wants to, but she's not in it enough to understand what the root crafting capabilities are. And she's also being looked at as the leader and the king. And so in her head, she feels like that means that she has to do it all alone.
She has to take that mantle up.
Yeah. But it was like this moment, I was just like, first of all, it's lit as hell. Second of all, oh, Bree, if you had known, we could have left Arthur.
That was an option. Because we done been here for 10 days.
Come on.
We've been at Volition for a week.
If only Dr. Hartwood
had been there.
Shown up.
Yeah. Okay,
and said,
so
instead of you learning how to work this power, how about we just take this white man out your soul?
So Patricia's like, we'll exercise Arthur. He's like, y'all don't even know how to do that. But Sestra, of course, is not really concerned with exercising Arthur. She more is wanting to control Bree. So what she says is, we will control her in our own way, which again is not about saving her. Then she pulls out ether cuffs, and the Root Crafters are immediately pissed off because what do you mean? Like, what? And Lucille says, the ancestors of volition will not stand for chains of any kind on our people ever again. Sestra, again, the Caucasity, I do not fear ghosts. And Mariah says, you should fear ours.
When I say that Sestra deserves all the bad that ever comes to her,
everything.
Let me tell you how in my mind
and
I'm organizing what that bad looks like. Like in my mind, she's force-fed gravel down her esophagus. Like in my mind, Sestra really she's haunted by spirits that never let her sleep. Like Sestra never should be able to sleep peacefully, nor should she be able to walk around this earth peacefully. She should have struggles from the moment she sleeps to the moment she wakes up. Like, not ever should she ever have peace.
I just thought the Sealy curse worked well the first time, so let's do that again. Everything you touch gonna crumble. Everything you wish gonna wither and die. Like,
that's a preview.
I don't fear ghosts. I don't fear bitch.
Be so for
girl,
real.
But over here pulling on some cuffs on a black girl, and then too cowardly to do it yourself too, because you
come on.
Ooh,
that part.
Ooh. And like what we're going to see from her, and I just want just die. Like, and again, preview into the bitch, but I can't hold it back because Sestra,
she's trash. So she, talks more about how Bree shouldn't be king and we shouldn't, just more racism. She then sends Lark to gather William, Sel, and Alice. So Lark approaches, but the Root Crafters only let him pass once William is like, yeah, it's fine. And then return. So since she again she hands the cuffs, like Porshèa said, she can't even put the cuffs on Bree herself. So she gives them to Erebus, who even he seems hesitant. Like even he's like, maybe we shouldn't. Like, is there a real reason why we're putting cuffs on her?
And Arthur wants to go.
Right. Arthur literally wants to go with them. Like his first thought was, let's go with the Regents. Take me to the Regents.
But especially here, when they just said the answers won't stand for that, perhaps we shouldn't, ruffle any feathers that don't need to be ruffled.
And that's the thing. Like Erebus also, he hate to say it, hate that it had to be this way. He understands the power of Rootcraft, and so he knows that it's not something to just turn your nose up at and to ignore. It's like, heartbreaking. The person, the most terrible person has made a good point. Like, that's how
he respects your culture. The worst person respects your culture.
I mean, in order to, use and abuse it, but he acknowledges the
power of it. He acknowledges the power of it.
As Arthur, because he said her root powers are much stronger than what I got. So the worst people respect that they don't have the juice you got.
But Sestra doesn't know. She don't even have power.
She gonna learn today.
So, but yeah, so Sestra also mentions, she's like, I want to deal with the table altogether. Again, Arthur is eager to go initially to the region and now to the table. So he's like, yeah, whatever. He also, pretty easily gives up, like, or offers to be cuffed. Like, he's not, like, I think it's a like pride thing where I don't think he believes that he should, but if it's gonna get him where he wants to go, he's not tripping, and he's not thinking about what will happen if he allows Bree to be cuffed.
He's also so quickly not forgotten, but has pushed to the back of his mind that he is in Bree's body, and this is like not
deeper
just
than him. He kept being narcissistic.
Yeah.
About him.
Like when they say, like, when Dr. Patricia says we, like, the ancestors will not allow one of ours to be enchained ever again, I think Arthur hears that and it's like, oh, that's interesting, but doesn't think, oh, I'm one of theirs. Like, the body that I have inhabited and possessing is the body
I
that
don't think it matters. Yeah, I just don't think it matters to him. I don't think that, like,
no.
I don't even think it's that's interesting. I think it's just like, that has nothing to do with me.
Right.
This is my body now. So Bree is just gone through so much freaking.
And I just also want to say, in terms of like this is my body now and stuff, and the, like, the worst people, you know, respecting your culture. It's like there are these moments when he's like, when he looks at Alice on the floor, and when he sees Cell, like, knocked out, he does think, I don't have any plans for Bree to ever regain control, but, like, that'll hurt her, and that's unnecessary. Like, I don't need to, just in case, I don't really need to break her soul like that. So there is this little inkling in the back of his mind that does care, the tiniest bit.
I don't know if it's caring so much,
like,
as just
not
like,
enough to, or acknowledging, but, like, not enough to change his behavior or to, like, change his decision making, but it, like, it is enough for him to be like, oh, that's uncomfortable for her. It ain't got anything to do with me, but for her, I can recognize that would be unfortunate. So yeah, I don't know what that means.
It feels to me more like, you know, he has his, he's a king, so he can afford to be what he would think is generous, you know? Like, despite all of what he's done to her, he's like, oh, I'll just leave her this one thing because, you know.
In his mind, he's still a hero. He's a good guy. He is doing.
So it's more like to, like, actually kill Alice. One, it's not important to my ends.
And he wasn't trying to kill her anyway.
Yeah, so, like, to finish the job or whatever would just be cruel for cruelty's sake. And I'm benevolent. I'm a hero, so I wouldn't do that. Mm-hmm. Whereas, like, a hero wouldn't possess, you know, someone.
That's too far, because it's about
a real hero.
Whatever he wants, he's the hero. Whatever the hero wants, the hero's supposed to get, because the hero is the hero. Mm-hmm. Taking it into the morality of what the hero wants is a step too far. It's about it's his story. He's the main character. It's about him.
Mm-hmm. So Erebus puts the first cuff on, and the volition barrier explodes. The ground kind of rumbles beneath their feet, and then he puts the second cuff on, and the ground starts to open up.
And the way I wanted Sestra to fall into that goddamn sinkhole. I know.
Yep, and never come up.
Literally.
Get swallowed into the Earth's core. The magic school bus journeys to the center of the Earth.
And then what's so foul is, like, the mage guard just, you know, there's folks who were, like, unconscious and, like, all this stuff. They just get left. Like,
yeah.
They're literally also, like, disposable.
Yeah, but also, like, she didn't do the dirty work for the first cuffing. Erebus is hesitant with once he sees the reaction from the first cuff, so she jerks his hand and takes the second one, puts it on. So she's bold. She's like, oh, I'm brave. Like, oh, they don't scare me. Girl, you saw the wave, and then you're like, oh, I'm gonna make it worse because I'm that big boss. I'm her.
Like, it was literally a warning of, like, don't do this. And now the ground's opened up. And now the cracks in the ground, it's about to swallow all your folks. The cars are done.
Behavior? to think that you're bigger and bolder than the black folk around you because you're willing to toss that, like, you're willing to bet your Karenhood over blackness. Also, I'm sorry. We're getting to the bench before I have to get to the bench. So, you know.
Yeah. So then,
it's so obvious though.
The ground is opened up and is like people are falling in, cars are falling in. Erebus grabs Bree / Arthur and Sestra, and takes them to literally the only car that's left. Lark has grabbed the others and is like struggling to get them. And Erebus is like calling for him to hurry up, but obviously the ground is opening up beneath him. And Sestra commands Erebus to just leave them behind. And so
now you want to run. You did this.
Yeah. But Larkin was all on you of volition anyway. So that was what I was like, my note was that like, does this hold up like in later discussions about like Larkin's loyalty or whatever? Like, will it hold up that he was like, I was just going to the next safest spot because the road was open? You know what I mean? Like, can he explain his way out of already?
I mean, I think they leave him too before they have, like, I think that he could, but I also don't know that.
Like, well, it says that like he never Erebus called for him. Larkin's already walking in with Bree and Cell towards Volition.
You mean Alice and Cell? Yeah,
Alice and Cell. Yeah, I think they because at one point beforehand, before they put the cuffs on her, Sestra told Larkin to see to Alice and Cell, but also like the mage.
Yeah.
So, but I'm assuming that he can kind of in the, you know, I thought I was walking towards the cars, everything was shaking and the ground was open. You know what I mean? I think he can.
Or at this point, he's like, fuck it. Like, Cell is knocked out. William is there by himself. And, like, at this point, I just need to be clear about where I stand.
Yeah, I think we're also going to find out, like, the jig is up on the Regents anyway.
Yeah, right.
So, I don't know that he cares.
Yeah.
To keep his cover.
Yeah.
And at the point in which you hear Sestra being like, I ain't scared of no goddamn ghosts.
Right.
Black. Like the underlying thing that she's not scared of. Right,
you are okay, bitch. You ain't scared.
Great.
Good for you.
Good
Black
for
folks ain't never scared. So hey, roll the dice.
Larkin said, I am not you.
Mm-mm.
I thought that hole they done opened up in the earth. I'm scared.
So Sestra has Erebus leave them. Erebus puts them in the car and then mesmers Bree / Arthur. And he is unable to stay awake. He passes out. And as he's falling asleep, they're leaving.
I love that Arthur's like shocked that he got mesmered as well. Like, it's just all of the caucasity of Arthur and Sestra, like, built, like, the Regents, I guess, as a whole, built up in this chapter of, like, how dare you use these, like, false morals and things against me? Like, it's fine when you do it to the actual Bree, but I'm sitting here telling you I'm Arthur. You gonna mesmer me? Like, just like the, like, what is it, like, woman who votes for leopard face eating party shocked when leopard eats their face,
right?
Like, in a nutshell, basically.
That's reminding me of the elephant that came back to get the woman after
to mollywop her at her funeral.
That's what I want for Sestra. I want for whatever beast she stirs to follow her past her death.
I want the ancestors to be like, you know, Volition is the sacred ground, but I will travel to this bitch's funeral to finish opening up that hole.
She's already gonna be 6 feet down. Let me give her 20.
Mm-hmm.
Wizard Team is part of the Black Nerds Create Collective, which provides content through the lens of critical and creative fandom. In B&C's Discord, you can not only find a channel dedicated to all things Wizard Team, but spaces to connect with other fellow nerds about stories across media, genre, and more. Join a group read, find book recommendations, and maybe even get the juice to write your own story. Just go to bnc-community.com to join.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Are you loving our commentary on Black fantasy stories and want to hear thoughts on more classic tales? Tolkien Black Folks is a hashtag and podcast where you can find all kinds of Black nerdy discussions about Middle-earth. Check out previous episodes on the BNC Presents podcast feed, and if you're a Black Tolkien fan, make sure to use the hashtag during Season 2 of The Rings of Power.
Whew. Okay, so let's get into chapter 57. They're on the road, and even Arthur is nauseated by the situation. Like, he feels the vomit. He can't deal with it. Could be
right. He's like having issues with like being alive again.
Yeah. But also it could be like he could like be motion sick, like because like they were moving miles per hour in a
right, exactly. So he's never been in a car before.
Yeah. So as they're in the car, conversation's happening. Sestra basically is saying that they're on the way to the northern chapter instead of the lodge at the southern chapter because she has heard news from her spy, Aitor. We're about to get into her. We're about to get into her.
Touched by an angel, girl.
About to get touched by a demon. Anyway.
That part.
She's heard word that the Legendborn have decided to organize against the regions, and they want to break that on up. What they needed Bree, so not even Arthur, they needed Bree handcuffed. We'll get into why that's part of the thing. To be available for them to show their might and buckle down on the organization against their activities within the Legendborn. She talks about how, and it's funny because Arthur's like, sounds like your machinations have not like made their way, and they clearly haven't. They've been unraveled, and
right, in part because like Bree was saying they weren't able to catch Bree, or they let Bree escape and then weren't able to get her back.
Yeah, the Legendborn are buying the pieces that the Regents have made for the whereabouts of Bree, Sel, and William.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I love that she expresses it in such like this is so inconvenient and annoying kind of tone. Like, he's like, oh, you're machinating, and she's like, yeah, I know, it's really inconvenient.
But is that not how all people in power talk about the people that they squash all the time? Like, whenever you think about like unions and like the people who are like, it's so. Let's talk about the fact that I watched what is it called? The Gilded Age. And one of the main characters in the story is this family who are basically robber barons, and they run like a railroad and also like a steel mill. And there is a unionizing happening at a steel mill, and they're like, well, let's bust that up because we can't have that. Like, they're having a stand, they're striking. We were trying to be thoughtful and give them like 2 pennies more per day, but I guess if they're gonna ask for more than 2 pennies, I guess we got to come through with some guns. And that's legit how Sestra is talking. She's like, what? Like, the fact that they think they can organize against us, like, laughable, but also like, we gotta break it up because we can't just like have them doing anything willy-nilly.
And she like
And
is
we
very...
can't have any moments of self-reflection to be like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe we should hear them out and find a new
Why
way.
would
forward.
they do that? We're the powerful ones.
Yeah.
We're the ones who know what we're doing. They know nothing. They're minions.
Not even just
Exactly.
minions, children. Like, she says that specifically, like,
Minions.
they're children, like, where we've
are
allowed them to have these meetings. I think she says, like, we've allowed the children to do this. We're like, it's like they're like we're indulging
so
them. We're
Yes.
indulging them in their, like, they want to feel involved. They want to feel like they, you know, have their like
have some
power and whatever
agency.
Exactly. So it's like we're letting them do this, but at this point we've got to kind of shore
Enough's
things
enough.
up.
Playtime's over.
Mm-hmm.
Time to get in line. And it's just, oh, go ahead.
Well, it's just that whenever Arthur is like, why let them meet at all? She's like, it's far easier to understand and guide sentiment than it is to squash it outright. Warfare is not all blades and bows. Perhaps if the original table had understood that, we would not still be in this war. Like, she's got it all figured out. And also what she's saying is that she's been feeding Tor like narratives and details to try to guide allegiance from the Legendborn towards the Regents, like even as they're openly like organizing against the Regents. And Tor, being the traitorous racist she is down because like this makes a lot more sense than actually caring about Bree's well-being.
Mm-hmm. But I think what's really interesting is that, and like obviously that we get into that deeper in a bit, but like there's also this assumption that Tor will be able to maintain their trust.
Yeah.
And like that they will back Tor before backing Bree.
Because they're all children and
right.
have minion minds.
Well, it's because they're children, but it's also like I think it has to do with belonging.
Or that
too,
they'll
right?
never
like,
never
Tor
side-eye Tor.
They would, yeah, they never side-eye Tor. Tor is, you know, she grew up here. Bree's an outsider. Not to mention she's Black, but like there's this assumption that Tor or that the Legendborn will find Tor more trustworthy as opposed to like side-eyeing her for being on the Regent's side all the time and for clearly having it out for Bree from jump, like especially those in the southern chapter, like from like there's this assumption that Tor will always have their ear, and will always be just more trustworthy, seen as more trustworthy.
What I think about when this part is that like there's this thought that like the newer generation hears the dog whistles and understands them as dog whistles and doesn't take them at face value. And what we see with some of the Legendborn is that they took the dog whistles as at face value. Like, yeah, they're not. It's not so much that they're like pro Bree, but the way in which the Regents have moved against a scion of Arthur, even if that scion of Arthur is someone who doesn't belong, is disconcerting enough for them to be like, and then also I think another thing is like they know what they did to William as well. And so it's like a little bit of like, you guys can continue to put Bree up as like a boogeyman, but the fact that you did this to William, the fact that there's still like questions about Cell, is like further separating the Legendborn from the Regents, regardless of how they feel about Bree as the figurehead or as of Bree as Arthur. They're like, I don't really particularly want her in charge, but I know for a fact I don't want y'all motherfuckers making the calls. You know what I mean? So it's like,
it's one of the I would say pitfalls of allowing them. Like I think, like, you know, the whole point is that the Legendborn are supposed to, like, they're bought into the lore of the Round Table and the Order and everything, and that's like meant to be what is keeping them in line. But there is also a moment where it's like when that butts up against each other, and like when it happens with the lieges, it's less concerning because they no longer have the power and they, you know what I mean, like they're kind of entrenched in the Order and they're given other jobs and all this kind of stuff to kind of like and they're dealing with abatement as well. Like, they just have more on their minds. But for the ones who were active, it like that kind of guides their like their morals and like what in their beliefs in a way that can work but can also backfire.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like
And
the
that,
main thing that the regents are underestimating is that they think, like you're saying, like the lore of the order is enough to keep the Legendborn in line. And so I think the regents are overestimating how much the Legendborn want things to remain the same, and that they like have a stronger allegiance to the regents than they actually do. Like, nothing that the regents has done has made anyone but Tor feel like that they should have a strong alliance between the Legendborn in the regents. Everyone else, like, they're, as orders have been passed, they've mostly been within the Legendborn like order themselves. And like whenever they have like those meetings or whatever, like, oh, this is like the adults posturing and like doing power jockeying or whatever, but like we're the ones in the field, we're the ones seeing the demons, we're the ones fighting them off, we're the ones doing all that. So I feel like a lot of like the top-down approach that the regents are like funneling through Tor is misguided because they think there's already a level of like empathy and like respect given to the regents that they can like pull on from the Legendborn that does not exist because they have not played their hand to actually have the Legendborn trust the regents.
The lack of propaganda. Like, if you got a fire ass line, like the line is law, right? That's fire. That's a slogan that like sticks with you. You know, I'm sure people got that like lieges got that tattooed on them somewhere. You don't have like the regents rule all, or you know what I mean? Like
regents rule.
Yeah.
But they haven't even like, you know, the regents haven't even tried to be like, we throw them a Halloween party every year. We make sure that they have a scholarship. They, you know, the regents have not done anything to be like, what, like the stupidity.
Here's a pizza party, some free food, like something, you know.
The way that corporations
that's what they should have did. They should have
brought
pizza to the. They rolled up with Bree Void cuffed. They should have showed up with pizza. That's the problem.
You showed up with pizza and a day off, a trip to the what is that, like the Great Wolf Lodge, or you know,
something,
Six Flags,
a field trip,
something.
and I'm like,
Employee Appreciation Week, you know, something.
I was thinking, as stupid as like people are to correlate the checks that we received during quarantine with Trump, because it's not, but people do equate it that way, and I'm like, even if they had used something to like that, like something that the college was already doing,
right?
They
like the regents on a stimmy,
yeah,
and a big old fake signature on a stimmy check, and then maybe they would have had some more leeway, but they didn't do none of that.
They did nothing.
No,
they just showed up looking ominous and
they just
saying crazy, hateful words, and then underestimated their whole campaign. They don't have
propaganda was too good.
They saw no need for a campaign. They're just like, oh, we're here.
Exactly.
We're it. They're gonna fall in line. Girl, for who? Crazy. You know what? But that's probably their dynamic with the lieges. But they have built a relationship with the lieges. They've given them like benefits. They've made them senators. They've put them in positions of power or whatever, right? Like,
well, I don't know if they did that with the lieges. They did that with the vassals. With the lieges out here fighting.
They're overestimating that with the vassals. They're overestimating like which of these kids actually cares about how much their parents jockey for power as a vassal.
And like the thing is like some of them, their stuff does, you know, it worked on tour, and we've seen, I think maybe Jill and Samara and them, they did talk about like, you know, they do have some lieges on their side, but I think they overestimated themselves, and I think they also like underestimated like Bree's friendships as well. Like, obviously she doesn't know anyone from like the other chapters, but Greer and Pete and them, like, they don't play about her really. Like, they're not, you know, they're not her besties, but they're
not William, but they're also
but they went through the page trials and stuff with her too, and just saw
and
her trying her best, and watching her be locked up for 3 months. You know what I mean? Like, they've seen all of the nonsense, and they don't have a, like, I think the main thing with, like, Tor, because even with, Sarah and some of the other scions and squires who are the people that Tor is one of, right? Because that's like the regents are leaning on the fact that Tor is of the Legendborn. She's one of them. They grew up together. They all came up together. Even that group of people who have been in it for a while, they're not like the pages that are in Bree's class or whatever. And even those pages have been around this order, but like even them, they have a affinity towards the people who they've seen in battle. They have never seen any of these regents in battle, and their names carry weight, but they carry weight only so far versus the people who they have fought side by side with.
Mm-hmm.
Their disdain for doing the dirty work is exactly why they don't understand the bonds that people make as they're doing the dirty work. And when you're in the castle, in the tower, and you're looking down, that's why rappers get less relevant as they accrue more like wealth or like distance from the things they initially started rapping about. Because it's like, you don't even know how to talk about that life anymore. You don't know how to be relatable anymore, bro. You're so busy doing the most ridiculous stuff. Now it's like you hoping that people are aspiring to get to your level. But at this point, nobody can even like get with you on a base level. Not me comparing the regents to rappers, but that's how I get. And going back to the story, to the page. So we're still in the car.
Right. We
Arthur decides. I mean, not really, because like we'll get there. Yeah. Arthur decides against sharing details of having seen the Demon King from Sestra, because he recalls, like, as they're talking, he's like, when she says something to him, like, you know, and he sees her trying to raise the bait when she says, like, oh, if you had moved like we did, you wouldn't have had Camlon be as bad. And he says, you've never seen the full bloodshed and chaos of Camlon. That's the only reason why you toy with it now. Which, I mean, not to be fair to Sestra, that I don't really need to be, but she didn't toy with Camlon. That was freaking Dud. That was Dud.
I think maybe he partially means like the way that they're kind of like, I think that they are in a way because they're trying to ignore it and they're trying to like keep it under wraps. Maybe he means it in that way.
However, the person who was toying with Camlon
was definitely or was trying to bring it. Yeah.
Because everybody else was like, girl, he's doing what now? For like, even the readers were like, he wanted what? We didn't need that. So yeah. Arthur decides while he's talking to her, he's like, why are you over here casting aspersions? I'm just not going to tell you nothing about me seeing the Demon King, because you're not even that. Again, when you're someone who does the dirty work, you only really see the bond being important with your fellow comrades. And that's how he sees the Legendborn rather than the regents, who he sees as just like, oh, y'all are just like some side advisors. You're not actually going to be useful to me. And messed up, because it's like you're not seeing the situation they're putting you in. Like, you really think you're that strong that when you link up with the squad, you're just gonna be able to squash whatever like structure and infrastructure that this group who's been doing stuff for centuries while you've been dormant you're gonna be able to just like topple all that. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
No.
But Arthur,
to me, what I took from this is like Arthur, especially since we've now seen what his like dream state looks like. Arthur honestly thinks he's about to walk in there with the other Legendborn and see Lancelot and see Gawain, like his folk. It's like, no, sir, you are a 6th century ghost in a 21st century world. They gone. You're not surrounded by other mediums.
And not all of them are mediums, like.
Yeah, none of them are mediums, so they're not being possessed. Like, you're about to walk into talk to a bunch of bunch of 8 teenagers who don't give a fuck about you outside of you as like a name and a mythos.
Let's get there first, though. Okay.
Yeah.
But Sorry, I just wanted to say, it's like, it reminds me of the, like, men's loneliness pandemic or whatever they talk about, and you're like, well, why don't you do something about that? Like,
why weren't y'all better folks where people, like, throughout your whole lifetime when you could have been a good person and people could actually want to be around you? Why didn't you maintain those bonds and be a good person to those folks instead of getting to being old and being like, oh, I pushed everyone away? You did. And
now I'm going to, instead of like fixing that, I'm going to take over the body of a child and try to relive my glory days and make the same mistakes all over again.
Trash. That's also applies to Leo DiCaprio. You got to earn that, DiCaprio. Erebus unleashes his Demon King side. Wait, my notes. Erebus. I'm thinking about like the Demon King thing that Arthur is like remembering, like having a conversation with him. It was really interesting thinking about the timing of it, of like either Erebus released the Demon King side on impulse to like seeing Arthur and like inhabiting Bree's body, and he was like, oh, I don't think Arthur, and just like was like, let me mess with Arthur for a second. Or it was calculated, and knowing that the full scope of his identity, like he knows Arthur's not going to clock that Erebus is actually the Demon King, and so like there's no way that he would know that Arthur was not going to share the fact that he had spoken to the Demon King once again. It's the fact that like he did it confident that even if Arthur said something about the Demon King being around, there's no way that he would be caught, because there's like even though he gave the clue that he's been like monitoring the order, they would never like put two and two together and think, oh, that's Erebus. And that was interesting to me. I'm like, Arthur choosing not to say something, like even if he did, Erebus has already like covered all of the ground. Like he's laid so much groundwork, it doesn't matter if he did or didn't. And then finally Arthur and company pull up on the assembled Legendborn. Arthur looks around and looks at them, and he wishes that they're all mediums like Bree, because he wants to see his knights in them the way that he's like Bree's been able to like do that when his like dream walks. He doesn't see them. He's looking so hard he don't see them.
I think the other thing too. I think the other thing too, which I just realized, is Bree never finished the oath. Like she never took the oath. So I think that's what he's like expecting to feel, but he doesn't, because Bree never completed it.
Yeah. So, and we'll see if that ever happens. Oh
my God, this people, why are they?
All the Legendborn are aghast. Like they're like, what are you, like, Ariana, what are you doing here when Sestra and Erebus are there? And then only for them to start the conversation with them, like, what are you doing here? For the other regions inside of Charles to pop up just as abruptly. Like they're all popping up like daisies. Like first you see Erebus,
it's like very, it's giving villain. Like they were waiting for they had their cues. They're like, it's all drama. They all pop up from different parts of the area.
Courtney did this last night. Like we put your X mark right here. You gotta sit on your spot, okay?
When we say the word legend, then you step out the shadows.
Exactly.
You know? Mind your cue. Wait for your cue.
Exit opening now. Yes.
Enter stage left.
Stage left. Mm-hmm. So most of the table, like Felicity, Greer, Sarah, they're all like, what's up with Bree? Why does she not feel like what's been happening with them? What's been happening with William and Sel? What in the world? Like we don't believe you, what you've told us. We don't understand why you thought that's what we're gonna do. What is up? And Arthur, while they're all like confronting the regents about this, Arthur and the regents are having a flag, like putting a pole down. This is my power. I'm taking the power now moment. Contest, just jockeying for power amongst themselves. Like Tor, the trash as she is the first one to clock who Bree actually is, because Sestra's been feeding her like this is how we're gonna disrupt this whole like power and interest people have in Bree about like let's scapegoat her powers. When Tacticus pops up and says, I would like to take a tour of that mine, because he realizes like Bree is not Bree right now. He's like, oh man, I gotta tinker with like her medium abilities. And this all pops up around the time that Arthur says, enough of this, I want to speak to my table. And so here Gabriel and Tacticus are like, your table. And then when Greer's like, Bree, what are they talking about? Why are you cuffed? Tori's like, that's not Bree, can't you tell? And then when they're like, who is it? Arthur says, I'm King Arthur Pendragon of Britain. Like, seriously? So they're just
He's
all
not
like,
a spy.
your table, my table, not your table. Like, they're just...
He's irritating.
And
they're all
also,
trash.
he said, hello, fellow kids. You know?
He did.
What? I am King Arthur Pendragon, son of Uther. Like, bitch, we don't care. We don't care.
And then here comes Aldrich being like, son Uther Pendragon, the first wielder of the blade house Excalibur, and the first ranked round table on the Shadowborn Holy War. And Arthur says, you recognize your king? All the better to see leadership to me with haste. Like,
oh my God.
I ain't bowing at nobody who says with haste.
Not
with a straight face.
That's the thing about this chapter. Like, everybody is irritating.
Like, I'm sorry, but if I can't trust you to not open a phishing scam in your email, I can't trust you to lead me in a holy war or whatever the fuck.
About it.
Like, if I have to tell you to turn it off and turn it back on again, I just can't follow you.
And that is a direct shot at you old people in positions of power, aka the Congress and the Supreme Court.
Give it up. Hang it up.
Get out of here.
If I have to explain to you what Wi-Fi is, hang it up.
5G, what is that? Go home.
Go.
Now. Thank you.
Time's up.
So Tor. Tor, who you would think would be so happy to see a white man usurping Bree's body to be king and lead things, it probably is. It's probably so happy to know that the black girl's not really black right now, because the white man is. She's probably happy. Part of her is like, I'm glad there's a man here somewhere. Is quick to use Sestra's intel to drive sentiment to be afraid of Bree's abilities, because Arthur, having taken over Bree's body, is in charge of Bree's body now. So Bree, being a host to Arthur, has made a selling point of propaganda for the regents. Basically, ye old early 19th century asylum argument of they don't have facility of their bodies, they're not sane, henceforth ableism, they can't lead, she don't belong here.
Right. And she basically, she's like, oh, Bree's practically a demon. She's more of a demon than she is a scion.
Ben said she was a demon.
Girl.
Same girl who dated a demon. Ready to... It's now the time to get the tour. Maybe it's later. That was my book dropping. So, to Tor's chagrin, Sarah, her girlfriend in Squire, is the first one to put 2 and 2 together in Tor's face and be like, are you telling us that you've known this whole time that the Regents were lying and you've still been trying to make us lean towards their cause?
Carrying the banner, insert Newsies dance break.
And Tor is like, raises her chin. Cameron has come, and Bree has no idea of what she's doing. She shouldn't even be here.
Girl. It's getting old.
It's and tired and desperate and not even covert how you think you should be the one in leadership, even though you shouldn't. There's nothing in and nothing about your family, not line 1. You as a person, 2. So many things. Oof. So they start arguing between themselves, and that's when Arthur notices that Excalibur is wrapped up and is in Eldritch's like on Eldritch's like in his like whole like setup. And when Eldritch takes this as a moment to taunt Arthur and shows that the blade isn't broken in two, which makes Arthur. I would say he would come out of character, but this is Arthur fully in character. He says, "What have you done, boy? That blade was forged by Merlin himself. It can't be forged by anyone else." And Aldrich just like, boy.
It's like, bro, be serious.
Like I said what I said.
You know this is Arthur. Like, be for real.
Well, that's not like the way that white people use boy, and then Aldrich is the one who's on the receiving end of boy. It's funny and also sad. Aldrich says, "You are truly Arthur," because like Bree would never. And then as for Excalibur, I had my seneschal break it for safekeeping when Brianna failed to return it to its resting place in a stone.
She didn't fail to return it. You literally attacked her.
Because you drugged her.
Her ability to do what she needed to do. That was you. That wasn't yeah. So now Arthur's demanding gimmies for Excalibur from Aldrich. Aldrich is being an awful a-hole and is like playing keep away with Excalibur. And he uses this moment to say, if you're the true king, perhaps you should, again, everyone on the stage in their spots. Mm-hmm. Let's set up the actual like play that we rehearsed. So this is a conversation, right? That starts that they wanted to have openly in front of the Legendborn to put Bree's ability to lead on questionable status. So they challenge Arthur to fight for the sword before his table against the 3 seneschals, Tacticus, Erebus, and whatever the face. I don't care right now. And Arthur is like, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And he's like about to like pull up his shield and blade. Only then does he remember, oh yeah, I'll let them cuff me. Bree. Let them cuff Bree. Oh.
Dummy.
Oopsie. And so then he realizes, because basically Aldrich says, is this your king? The one that allowed himself to be manacled like a rogue magic user?
Oh my gosh.
If we take these off, will she show us Brianna's unnatural root or her inability to control the most basic of Legendborn powers?
Yeah.
So only
look at you. Hoisted by your own petard.
Not only did Arthur set this all in motion by allowing Bree to be handcuffed, that was only his latest infraction. His most potent and thing that messed up Bree from jump, that while he was plotting for himself, was that now you've effed up on so many levels that nobody will see you in Bree, because you're in Bree's body. You're not Arthur, you're Bree. Nobody wants to see Bree lead because you've shown that she don't even know how to do anything that makes her capable to be on the field as you with your powers.
He really thought that he was like, oh my, this plan is great. You know, he thought he was really like doing the thing. Stealth King.
He was rubbing his hands in victory as he was sitting there in his dream state.
He was like this plan is foolproof.
I got it. Nobody, Merlin himself would be impressed by what I'm about to pull off today. Let me tell you. And this is when Arthur's like, oh, wait a minute. This is the regent's goal, isn't it? They want to force the table to witness their king out of control. Yes, possessed by a spirit. They didn't plan for that. You did that, Arthur.
You did that. You made it even better.
The regents for a lot of things, but we cannot blame them for them seeing Bree possessed by a spirit. That was all you.
Yeah,
big boy.
That was just the cherry on top.
Also you. That was also you.
Yep.
Discredit Brianna before she has even begun by the evidence that you withheld. You see how the legend
again hoisted by your own petard.
The Legend-born look between Bree and the regents and 2 to 3 seneschals and back to Bree again. And they're all uncertain. Well, the uncertainty ripples among those who don't know her. There are like a little group of people that Arthur assumed are the scions of the houses that are housed at the northern region or outside of the southern chapter. They ripple with uncertainty, and then everyone else is confused. But not Tor. Tor is gleeful. Tor is been hatching her whole moment. As soon as she met Bree, she's been waiting for this moment. She gleefully says she doesn't belong here. She never did. And now she's compromised, just like she wishes to compromise us. Can't you all see? And Arthur gives Tor a slight read, but is not that good. He says, Toria is not a born leader, but she knows how to command a crowd. Girl, what? No. At her words, confusion turned to suspicion for some, and then fear. And then Arthur Bree sneers at all of them and says, why don't you all have Erebus remove these cuffs then, Aldrich, and we'll see who triumphs.
Dumb.
I want to chop Tor in her throat. I want to chop Arthur in his throat. I just want to gravel sentences for everyone. So now that the rabble has been fully roused, the idle folks that Arthur, possibly the Legend-born, possibly the regents, all took to be the unacquainted scions of the northern chapter revealed themselves to be no one other than the red herring we've been calling out to book 1, the Morganes.
Finally.
It's only the last couple of chapters in the book, of the second book of the series. I mean, here they are. And their hand movements are a form of magic that Arthur says he's not seen in a very long time. So just by their hand movements, he recognizes like who they are. And that the clandestine meeting that the council interrupted was not solely a gathering of the round table. So question is, multiple questions. 1, had the Morganes always been located somewhere near the like northern chapter? Like this is like where they've been hiding out, like with like under like how they've gotten some insight into the order because they've also been able to infiltrate like one of the chapters. 2, were they already cloaked as these scions whenever they were having the meeting just in case, or were they like, oh, we hear Wills, let's cloak up real quick? 3, one of the Morganes is one that Arthur can see the likeness of his sister Morgane in. Her name is Ava. Is she also a medium like Bree, and is that why he can see it in her? Those are my 3 questions for the Morgane.
I felt like
before we get further.
I felt like it seems like this was the first time that they had, because Tor didn't realize that the Morganes were there.
Yeah.
So it seems to me like, I don't know who I think there's still a question of like who reached out to the Morganes, and like I feel like
that
maybe
was my question. Yeah,
it was So my theory is that, because we talked about a couple episodes ago, like the possibility of Nick being with the Morgaines. So I'm wondering if maybe Nick got in touch with like Greer or Sarah, or you know what I mean, or Pete or whatever, and was like, here, you know, like maybe made that connection, because Tor doesn't know. So I feel like it could be possibly that it's through him or some other, or maybe through somebody in the Northern chapter or something, where they were just like trying to.
They kind of mentioned that like Nick feels Cell's murderous intent, and then he feels nothing, and so he calls the lieges, and that's how we'll see Nick again. Spoiler alert. So it could have been that he called the Morgaines at the same time he called the lieges, because, or like told the Morgaines at the same time, but we don't get like a true, or I can't remember getting a true like this is who brought them in.
Yeah, and I'm sure we probably won't until Oathbound, but so my thought was that it could be Nick, or it could have just been like they connected in a different way through someone else, and like it seems like this was the first meeting where the Morgaines were like
in person?
Invited and like came. And so that's why Tor didn't know that they were there.
But it has to be someone in the Legendborn who are like, it has to be one of the Legendborn who's there, because it like, I just don't like they're already questioning everything else. Like, why would they suddenly like be like, we can trust?
I think the other
this meeting was actually to like, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think the other thing is I don't know that I can't remember if it's confirmed or not, but like I assume that they have their own spy with the Regents, because otherwise
that's
like they had to have known that the Regents were gonna show up. They definitely didn't know Bree was gonna show up with like possessed by Arthur, because no one knew that was gonna happen, but they at least knew the Regents were going to try to bust them, and so they're like, okay, we're gonna bring the Morgaines in to kind of, or they were just, or even if they didn't know the Regents were going to show up, they're just trying to figure out and find allies against the Regents. And so here they are. And because they just gathered and didn't have time to like expose themselves, Tor doesn't know that they're there.
That's actually what does happen. Like they explained. They came to this meeting because the meeting was, how do we get rid of or how do we rise up against the Regents or take power from the Regents? And they invited Morgaines to help them, because the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and now the enemy is the Regents. My biggest thing is like, how do they get in touch with the Morgaines? Is there an 800 number? And the Morgaines are like, we'll get back to you if we think you're trustworthy, or if it's something we want to get, because like they seem in the first 90% of the series, both books, to be just these like figments of legend, boogeymen. No one, like the Morgaines exist, but we don't know where they're at. We don't understand their like their structure, all of these things. And then yet when the Legendborn decide to rise up against the Regents, somehow someone knows who to call and how to call. And we kind of talked about it with like Nick when we were wondering if Nick was with the Morgaines when he ran away, if he went and hooked up with the Morgaines. Like there has to be someone who is at least sensitive or semi-aligned to their beliefs within the order, who's feeding them information, and also is probably how they recruit.
I feel like that's why I had the question of like, has the Northern chapter always been their domain? Because I feel like the Southern chapter is so hyper involved in things that it would make sense for the Morgaines to have a contact within the Northern chapter that's a bit more removed, or maybe the California, one of the chapters that's more removed from the like regular functioning of the order. So that there's like, it's a bit easier to like be tapped into things, but also like not always be around without people noticing and it like registering anything on the Regent's radar.
Yeah.
Also is, yeah. So what are the Morgaines doing here? What the Morgaines want is the end of the order and the regents. They're like, we don't actually care about any of y'all. We think y'all, it should all go. And Arthur, you being here is like, not, no one wants you here. And like, while Arthur seems to have a soft spot for like Morgaine, his sister, the descendant Ava, who Arthur is seeing Morgaine in, says, your reign, your order is what eventually drove your sister to exile, or did that history get lost beneath your many wars? And he doesn't know what's happening, but when he looks through Bree's memories, he understands that the order accused the Morgaine's descendants of treachery, and he says, that's a mistake, I will make this right, I swear to it. And Ava says, it's too old for that, old man. She raises a hand, and magic that is very similar to Morgaine's comes to her, and the Seneschals are all, well, like, first off, they had all, the regents and the Seneschals have been like put into a prison of the Morgaine's abilities. And Sestra's in this, and she shouts at Victoria and says, you hid that the table has aligned with the Morgaines. And Tor says, I didn't know, I swear. And that's when Greer says, oh, girl, let's start from the beginning. The Morgaines approached us with their intel about what the regents were really doing behind the scenes. And that's why we know that they'd drugged and kidnapped William and Bree. They told us that they locked Stella away in Shadowhold without a trial, and they're the reason why we know that the three of them escaped and that you want to murder Bree. This is what Robyn was saying earlier, that the enemy of your enemy is a friend, blah, blah, blah. Tor says, and you kept this all from me? All of you? And Sarah says, yeah, girl, because we didn't trust you. And
you kept you talking to the regents from all of us?
Right.
All of you thought we trusted you this whole time?
Please.
And so
espionage is not in your future, Tor.
So Sarah says, so Tor has a nerve to look over at Sarah, her eyes wide and watery. And Sarah shakes her head and says, you kept trying to get us to trust the council, even when we all knew that they were lying to us. Like, big red flag, girl. Like, you was trying to play this spy game, but you kept being obvious. Like, what do you want? You really thought? None of y'all are good. Like, the regents are dumb. They thought that we were buying. Like, so many, y'all really were not trying. There was no game. There was no strategy. There was no nothing. And you've gone after Bree from the beginning for all the wrong reasons. So I told the others that they couldn't trust you with this.
Your own girlfriend.
When you do clownery.
Call something from inside the house because Sarah like, oh, you're racist. And I knew that. But I draw the line at siding with the regents.
Racism I can understand, but
But siding with the regents?
You can excuse racism? 6 seasons in a movie.
God, man. I wish this is not believable. But so all this time that this drama is unfolding, the Seneschals are trying to break out of the Morgaine's constructs, and as soon as this proclamation is made, they're able to break on out of it. And what do the regents do? Same thing Setra showed us that they're going to do. Their first impulse is cowardice and narcissism. So they beat their feet and retreat as the Seneschals buck up and ready to fight against Arthur/Bree, not really Arthur/Bree right now, but the Morgaines and the Legendborn. And as they're duking it out, Arthur takes this distraction moment to notice that Excalibur has been abandoned by Aldrich, and now it's his time to reclaim Excalibur. So luckily for him, Excalibur can cut through his cuff magic, so he works it off. And then once he's able to like get the construct of Excalibur moving in the fighting condition, he's like, oh, I'm gonna join this fight. No, because one, the Seneschals are flagging enough for like there to be a pause in all the battle. Two, because of them flagging and pausing, A was able to clock what Arthur Bree is doing, and is like, nah, son. As soon as you picked up Excalibur, you brought on troubles you're not ready for. And before Arthur Bree can like recognize what it is that's happening and what is about to go down, a car comes barreling out of a secret tunnel.
Secret tunnel.
And that's the end.
Secret tunnel.
Of this narrative for this chapter, for this episode. Like, you're so busy. And it's what's so funny is how much power is on that board that is like magical power that can like fill borders and stuff from the Seneschals to the Morgaines or whatever. And we don't really hear like, I guess the Mage Guard is basically decimated because of all the
they're out. They are not there. There are no Mage Guard.
There's no Mage.
They're
leave
either
them.
recovering or they've been swallowed up by the earth, by the ancestors. I mean, maybe there are more.
So no one is paying attention to the sensors that should be in place to like, is there something coming out of a secret tunnel? Like, no. No, we're too enwrapped in it's like watching a reality show and being like, oh dang, like okay, oh girl, and then suddenly something else comes out. You're like, oh shoot, I didn't even think anything about paying attention to that, but I guess I should have.
Interesting.
Okay,
interesting.
so who is your MVP? I said the ancestors.
Yeah,
I think we're unanimous.
Same.
The ancestors. And like I want to say, I was really trying not to like just narrow it down, but obviously the bench is not. But like I do want to shout out Patricia and Lucille and Mariah for standing on business. But the ancestors are my actual MVP.
I mean, they did what needed to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like they like I it took me back to when they first got to Volition and like Mariah had, like lifted her hands up wide and was like, welcome to Volition.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like a moment. And they were like, we will not let you put our folks in chains. Like, and then they were like, dude, it was a very, in the worst kind of way, like a Disney epic. Like I felt like big music should have started playing, like horns and a orchestra as like the earth opened up.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was cinematic as fuck.
Yeah.
And also like what they deserved. So I love it. Like prove your point and make it memorable.
I just love that the answer is like, we might be dead, but we're not dormant. We can play the moment.
Like some people.
That you were warned.
So
you found out, and that's your problem, not ours. You were given proper warning, and we didn't have to do that. That was on my descendants. The descendants decided to do that, but we would have gone and take you out no matter what anyway. As soon as you decided you were going to do what you was going to do. So
I have a not welcome mat. It basically like at my door. It says, "There's no reason for you to be here." It doesn't say welcome. It says there's no reason for you to be here. And I feel like that is what the ancestors said. They pulled up in all them cars and the ancestors said,
Don't recall sending an invitation for colonizers to pull up on my driveway.
Why is you here? Is what they said. And yes, agreed. Same.
I know they're shaking their fist at Bree. Like, we let you bring these two white boys into volition.
Yeah,
And
but it's not really her
3
fault.
days later. I know, but the way you get clowned in a Black family.
Yeah.
That's true.
Those your friends? These your people?
Oh, we see why you want to hang out here, because you hanging out with these folk.
I also MVP'd the non-tour Legendborn because I'm here for a reunion. I'm here for organizing against the system, and I appreciate that they were like, 2 + 2 is not equaling 4, and I'm not going to just sit here and take it. We're going to actually organize against it. So any organizing that happens, I'm going to give it its props, because organizing is a hard thing to do, and like a place to get everyone to be in agreement about. And I'm glad they got there.
Yeah, and I agree,
also,
in terms of there was this whole one, we haven't been around them, so we literally don't know what they've been doing this whole time while Brie and them have been on the run. But also there was this assumption that or from the Regents, this assumption that they would just take what they say about Brie and William and stuff about at face value. And so the fact that they didn't, and they weren't just sitting idle, or I guess, fighting demons just to fight demons. They actually were able to take the time to really think about it and be like, this ain't really adding up.
Right. And I think because we talk so much about it being like a cult, and them being especially as we see with Sel and Will when they're on the run, and their hesitance to truly believe the worst in the Regents until, or not to believe the worst in the Regents, but to truly believe that the Regents' main goal is not to win Camlin or fight this war. You kind of assume that sentiment is shared, and it's a hard thing. It's really hard to combat that kind of programming, especially when it's been, shoved in your face for that long. And I think we did see it with the lieges that helped save Brie, so we know that it exists, but it also feels like a thing that comes, or it felt like a thing that would come with time, and once you've aged out and you see how you're kind of shunted aside more, that kind of cynicism would build up. But they are into the thick of it, and they're like, nah, 2 + 2 is not 4.
All right.
Bench.
And I feel like our bench is also unanimous. It was one of those things where I was like, I want to choose one, but it's literally impossible. They're all especially, I feel like chapters 56 to an extent, but especially 57, where it's just no, literally all of y'all are trash, and it's just watching a trash off. Y'all are just competing.
It's a running list of benchable offenses. You're just bench.
Everybody loses. That's the thing. Y'all were competing.
Everyone never
all lost.
I feel like I had to bench per chapter. Normally it's the combination of chapters. He's the worst in all 3. But no, Arthur was the worst, and then the Regents were the worst, and then Tor was the worst. And they were so distinctly awful that they all needed to be name checked for their awfulness.
Yes, exactly.
And then at one point in 57, they all just piled up on each other to be awful.
Because I was like, oh, maybe I'll just bench Sestra. Because the Regents, but Sestra is giving the most. And then we got into 57. I said, oh no, all of y'all can sit.
Nobody act right.
Because Aldridge came in with the nonsense. Tacitus and his, I would love to get a turn in that mind.
Right.
Don't be creepy.
Sir, have some decorum.
Right?
It's the way they prepared. They had rehearsal night and had everything laid out and ready for their coordinated play acting, and still were running scared off the field. They really thought they had the upper hand, and that Tor, the low-life racist, was their key to victory. And I just see how whiteness works. It puts you on the bench.
Or doesn't work. How they're trying to work.
That's how whiteness works. It works until it doesn't.
But I feel like that's really the bench. Because you see that see it. That's the like through line for all of these people.
With
for Arthur, for the
Tor. Yeah.
Like, it all is that.
It works until it don't.
Until it don't. You can set up everything, the infrastructure, you're the order. You have everything built for your whiteness to work. Arthur thinks he has everything built for his whiteness, his Arthurness, his kingliness. The hierarchy of being a legend upheld by white folks in his hands. The regents think the power that they hold, having manipulated the order to be what it is today, they have everything in their hand. Tor thinks working in collaboration with the regents and being third in line is like Tacticus just being a creepy a-hole.
A creepy man
who likes to use magic to play in people's minds and dissect them as if they are not human beings, which is core peak whiteness at its most violent. Whiteness. Watch whiteness work until it doesn't. Against your own people. They was all white. Like, this is the white on white crime.
White on white crime.
What can whiteness do for you?
This is the white on white crime.
Thank you for listening to this penultimate episode of Wizard Team Reads Bloodmarked. Join us next week when we finish the book and discuss chapters 58 through 60. Are you ready? I'm not.
I can't believe it.
I'm ready to be
Look
done.
at that.
I'm tired of being stressed out for you every week. Let's go.
Who would have thought we'd get here? Right? Look at us.
Look at us.
Still stressed about Bree.
Yeah. Wizard Team is part of the Black Nerds Create Collective. If you want to keep up with our content, you can check out our website at blacknerdscreate.com. Follow us on Instagram and Tumblr at Wizard Team Pod and at Black Nerds Create. Bye.
Bye.